Well, welcome one and all to the Golfzon Leadbetter University Virtual Summit. I'm Ben Riches, CEO of Golfzon Leadbetter, and it's my privilege and honor to have four of the greatest minds in sports performance with us today. So I'm hoping you've tuned into this session because you want to gain 50 yards on your drive, not just 10 as we advertised. And there's obviously a certain individual out there on tour who is currently doing that. And a huge part of the success of these modern day tour players like Bryson or Rory or even Tiger back in his day is that they are able to channel the energy and the power and the explosiveness to propel that golf ball further than any of us really dream about. So whether you're a golf coach, a trainer, a golfer, the whole goal of this game is to hit it further, get the ball in that hole quicker, and obviously play with consistency. So there's an interesting dynamic that we're going to discuss over this hour is how do you train like the pros? Firstly, what do the pros do? So we're going to delve into that, and the four gentlemen here that I'm going to introduce you to in a minute have insights working with the very top players in their respective fields. And then how can you apply that? If you're a golf coach or a golfer, how can you apply some of the lessons that the tour players have? A few little housekeeping notes. There are handouts that you're available on the right hand side of your control panel. If you want to learn more about any of the topics or the speakers, you can ask a question. So if you're thinking I'm not asking the right questions as the moderator, put a question into the chat function, I'll see it, and then I can put that to the panelists. So with that being said, let me introduce you to our first panelist, Tim Roberts from Therabody. A fantastic new product that we've seen a lot about, and Tim has a vast array of experience working in sports marketing, a fellow Brit, so he's going to sound a bit like me on here, but is over here working in the US, and really pleased to have Tim join us today.
No, thank you, Ben. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of the panel, and to give a little bit of background on myself. So a sports scientist, been fortunate enough to work with professional athletes, amateur athletes for the last 10 years, helping them to kind of understand how to take sports science and really apply it to what they do in terms of their training, nutrition, hydration, and things like that. And as a passionate golfer, being able to do that with golfers at the highest level, all the way down to the weekend warrior. And now with Therabody, obviously the makers of Theragun and previously Theragun, kind of building what science does in that company in terms of our commitment to ensuring that the products and the devices are backed by science, but also that we have world-class education. And when it comes to that world-class education and why is Theragun relevant to the golfer, it really comes down to the fact that there's only one piece of equipment that a golfer has that they don't get to change every year, and that's their body. And if you look at what's happening on tour right now, and they're understanding that whether it's kind of traveling with massage therapists, manual therapists, physical therapists, with a trainer, they're getting their body worked on before a round, after a round, etc. And kind of from a Theragun standpoint, we're now being able to give access to that to everybody with a device that they can use, but also fit in their golf bag as well. So we're excited to be here and talk about how the best in the world are training and how amateurs can learn from it.
Well, we're great to have you here, Tim, and obviously seeing Theraguns appearing on tour is a pretty good indication that the tour players are using this tool. So we're going to learn a lot from Tim in the next hour. Next up, really pleased to have Dr. Marty Miller with us from Technogym, vast 20+ years experience in the sports performance, and now turning his trade into the technology and how this equipment can really help tour players. So Marty, give us a little bit of a background to your experience and what you're doing with Technogym.
Sure, absolutely, Ben. Thank you so much for having me on the panel today. I'm privileged to be with such great minds, and I know I'm going to learn a lot as well. But Technogym, I've been their Director of Education and Training for North America now for the last 3 years, and it's an absolute privilege because Technogym being the world leader in performance and equipment manufacturing, but also digital solutions and education and research and design. And we're very excited about a lot of our partnerships, but one that we're truly excited about with is the PGA Tour, and obviously here with all of you here at Leadbetter. And being the official supplier of the PGA Tour allows us to get in front of the great minds that work with the world's greatest golfers each and every day and come up with not only new advances in technology, equipment, digital connectivity, but also the programming and the solutions that the world's greatest golfers are using each and every day, as Tim said, to perform at the highest level. So we play a major part in that by being the sole provider of equipment in the trailers that follow the PGA Tour players around week to week. So we give them that consistency in training. And now what we've seen is a huge increase in those players that are trying to peak out their performance, wanting to work with us on their own. So we're really excited about that, because now we get to spend more and more time with the players, but also their strength and conditioning coaches, their physical therapists, their biomechanists, and now it just gives Technogym the ability to continue that heritage that we have, that we like to say champions train with Technogym. So we're very excited to be here and very excited about everything we're doing in the golf performance segment.
Thanks, Marty. And obviously, again, a little bit like Therabody, having product that the tour players are using is a pretty good indication that this is the top of the game, and this is the equipment that every golfer should be looking towards once they get into a sports performance mindset. So Marty, thank you for joining us. Next up, the pioneer, if you like, for golf performance and biomechanics in the world. There's nobody that's got more experience or more credit should be given to than Mr. JJ Rivet, who has joined us from France, avoiding lockdowns and logistical challenges to be here today. So JJ, I know I probably won't do justice in terms of an introduction, but I know that David has used you as his font of knowledge for biomechanics for 20 or 30 years now, and you really developed applied biomechanics to golf. So I don't think there's anybody else that knows more about how the golfer's body should move through the research and studies that you have, JJ, the work you do with the European Tour, your performance facility there in the south of France, and all of the tour players, the many tour players and other athletes that you've worked with. So bienvenue, JJ. It's great to have you with us. Tell us maybe a little bit about Biomecha Swing, and if you can, tell us about the experience that you have in this field.
Yeah, first of all, I'm very happy to be with all of you, and just thinking about, you talked about 30 years, but it's almost that, when I start, in the field of applied biomechanics, but at the start, it was in the years 1990s, working with the French soccer team, with car racing, with Peugeot Sport, with windsurfing, swimming, and so on. And it's when I came to the golf, I always remember that most of the players says, okay, I don't touch to my body, it will kill my swing. That's why how they were doing that. And I remember a great guy with Bernard Langer, who certainly was the only guy who was in the physio unit, who was also a physio unit and the biomechanical applied biomechanical unit, where he was spending all the time with us because nobody wants to work physically. And I will say certainly he has been also a pioneer in understanding, how it's important, to know how your body can go further to maintain a performance longer. So for sure, thanks. I will not be there. I can't say that without David Leadbetter, because he has been convincing me, a long time ago now. I remember it was in 1996. He was coming in France on one of his academy, and he was very interesting about the biomechanics. He asked me to see me for 15 minutes, and we spent 4 hours. Everybody was pissed off, and very quickly after that, we said I come in the US with a scientific visa or one visa, to work with David and all his team. And David thinks that how important it was, to understand, the quality of each players to be able to apply some specific tools for them. He decided me to create, something coming from what I was doing with all sports, especially for golf. And that's why, in the year 1998, we have been starting with David to work with Kister plate. We developed the first prototype of dual force plates. We applied, the biomechanics on the course and in a big course like in Winged Foot and so on, to check the athletes, with a system we call the APAS from Ariel Gideon. And so I think we have been the pioneer, with David, to take in consideration how the body structure could have an influence, in the swing and in the different direction you can apply depending of what your capability in the body are able to create. So just for you, here I'm very happy to welcome you even during the lockdown, in our nice center, which almost unfortunately closed, right now. And I will be very happy to share all that with all the other guys, I have a lot of respect for. And let's go.
Thank you, JJ. Thank you so much. And just as a small anecdote, even though JJ's unable to maybe travel and is there just a couple of weeks ago, he was working with David, understanding and looking at the biomechanical data that David's student Patrick Reed was providing. And so we were here at Champions Gate with David and our next panelist Trevor collecting the data. JJ was able to analyze it. So I know this session isn't about technology, but it's quite amazing how we can now study and analyze these athletes from different countries and provide feedback that helps them directly with their golf swing. So JJ, thank you so much for giving us your time. I've already introduced him partly, but Trevor Hippolyte is the Director of Performance and Fitness here at Champions Gate at the Leadbetter Academy. Vast experience both as an athlete and now as a trainer, as an expert in this space. And he's the man that puts these golfers' bodies together for us and works alongside David and JJ and our other coaches. So Trevor, welcome. Thank you for taking part in the panel. Maybe give us a little snapshot maybe of what you kind of a typical day might be for yourself at the academy.
Well, excellent. I mean, I'm kind of the beneficiary of all these brilliant minds that we're getting ready to delve into today. I've been fortunate enough to be in the industry for over 18 years. I would say, within the performance side of it, just from my background in football, but more golf specific tennis for 14 years. And when I got into the industry, it was all new. So I was very lucky to, obviously with my background, to be with some amazing mentors in biomechanics and movement and Pat Etcheberry, and learn, right? And then also be in a situation where I focus mainly on junior golfers for extended periods of time for 9 months. So being able to apply, right, when having that control group for over that period of time, I'm able to kind of test in different theories as the sport evolves from a fitness standpoint, from a communication standpoint, and have the opportunity to, within the last 10 years, to really understand the biomechanics of the golf swing. So now when I go back to the gym, I can reinforce those techniques and my passion is always try to bring the golf swing into the gym for levels of understanding and performance needs. So truly humbled to be a part of it. Again, I'm the beneficiary. I take information from JJ, from Tim, from Marty, on what they have and able to apply it and get our athletes to understand it, when and how to use it. So I'm totally privileged. Our students, we feel that because of all this information, that they have a better opportunity to perform at a higher level. And that's what it's really all about for us and what we're able to do for them. I can train them for the hour that I have them a day or 2 hours, but it's really about when they walk away from me, are they doing the right recovery process? Do they understand how to use equipment correctly, applying it to their posture? And also, do they take the right leads from their coaches? And so this is, I'm really excited to see where fitness and performance is in golf right now. And, so really excited about this.
Thank you, Trevor. Well, that's our panelists. They're the 4 experts, so we're delighted to have you all with us. The purpose, obviously, of this presentation is to be able to give advice, guidance, and maybe some insights into the world of sports performance and biomechanics. So as an initial topic that I'd like to kind of put out there, I think it's important for people to understand what a tour player might go through, what a typical week or routine might be for a tour player. So JJ, as you were the pioneer, as you self-claimed that this is a world that you've helped develop, obviously, perhaps we can start with you. So JJ, maybe can you give us an explanation of perhaps the work you would do with a golfer, a tour player, so that people can start to understand the level of information that you collect and what you do, how you apply that then to their golf swing?
Yeah, we have been designing year after year a very scientific protocol, which is able, first of all, to to understand, you know, the capacity in terms of range of motion, in terms of strength, in terms of coordination, and in posture. What is about for the players? Because when you talk about range of motion, it will have an interaction in all, you know, the components, you know, of the swing. But even more important, when we look at the players, what we see with all the study we've been doing on the European Tour is, first of all, every player must be, you know, very in harmony. You don't have to have some miss, you know, in terms of elasticity, in terms of strength, in terms of proprioception, and so on. So all that, you know, comes from we scan the body of each players with our we have some very specific design protocols that Trevor and knows about. You know, it's the core of our research, where everything we always link a miss of elasticity, a miss of strength, miss of proprioception with the position of the center of gravity of the body when you are standing up normally. Means that, you know, you will have, you know, some reaction of the muscle, the kinematic muscle chain around the body. We will have a big importance in the golf swing. So what Trevor is able to do, what we are doing, you know, it's really to scan the body to know what are the big difference in between a golfer and another, and also in between a golfer today and a golfer in 2 months. All that will be given, you know, to the coach, and the coach are trained to understand what will be the importance of a miss of elasticity, strength, and coordination, you know, on the players. And that's where comes our analysis. Our analysis always are connected, you know, with the trajectory of the board. Means that, you know, we are all different. We are a signature of player who are puller or signature of player who are pusher. Depending on that, we are looking what are the main parameters in the body that could have an interaction in the maintenance of the performance or in the optimization. So it's a very strict protocol that has been designing, you know, at the start, we have been evolving, and the goal of this protocol, it needs to be done in less than 1 hour and a half. Why? Because, you know, at the start, when we start with David in 1998, you know, we take too much parameters, and we see that a lot of parameters have there is some discriminant parameters, and so we have been doing a protocol which is in less than 1 hour and a half, able to give, you know, to the coach really a very strong idea of what are the difference in the body, you know, they have in front of them. That's really the key of what we are doing, and it's not a secret, but it's something that works, and which is able, you know, to let us understanding what are the myths, you know, for a young guys, a very top seniors, or an athlete who goes after fatigue, or maybe who goes after sometimes too much training. That's the key. You know, we discuss all that with the coach and the trainer, because we have some goals, and sometimes too much strength could have an impact, not a good impact on golf. We can discuss about that after.
So Marty, if we're taking on what JJ is talking about, obviously you have Technogym equipment on the PGA Tour, right, in the tour trucks. What are you typically seeing? Is this every tour player coming using this equipment? When are they using it? How are they applying it to their game? Obviously, JJ can give the scientific reasons of what they should be doing. What are you seeing when you're out there?
Yeah, our partnership with PGA started 2 years ago, and they revamped the tour player trailers. And since then, you know, we've seen almost over a 90% activation by the players. It's almost, you know, they made them bigger and they made them nicer. It's almost created it as a problem in a good way that now they're even busier, because I think the athletes appreciated not just the newness of the trailer, but the ability to go in and work out on the world's greatest equipment. And the key thing is, you know, myself as an athletic trainer have trained professional athletes before. It's all about, can we capture data, and can we use that data to elicit the best training response? You know, I always like to say athletes train. Sometimes a lot of people just exercise, where they're just going into a gym and just doing random stuff without a desired outcome. But when you look at the minds on this panel, Trevor and JJ and Tim, everything is done, executed with precise scientific relevance to elicit a very specific response. because the athlete, you know, as Tim was saying, your body is your most important vehicle, you know, for your performance. So we don't want to overtrain, we don't want to undertrain, we want to see about recovery. So where Technogym excels is the research and design that we put into the most innovative equipment in the world. We have over 250 people that work in our headquarters in Italy, PhDs, MDs, physical therapists, athletic trainers, psychologists, sports psychologists, and PhDs, to make sure that we create the world's greatest equipment to go out and then get it in the hands of people like Trevor and JJ, so they can now use, you know, these protocols that we put in with their athletes to get specific measurables to make sure now that they can execute the plan that they're looking for their golfers. And, you know, golf is such a long season. So it's so important to understand the training loads that your athletes are on and making sure that they're recovering and they're resting and peaking at the right time. So that's where we really see the importance of what we do, is creating that innovative equipment that produces extremely accurate data and or technology to elicit amazing responses when put in the hands of the best professionals in the world.
Obviously, to be clear, obviously Technogym equipment can be used for any discipline, any sport. I know you're with Formula One racers and NFL players and everything else, right? But you have specific protocols just for golfers, that's correct?
Yeah, so, you know, we've been the sole provider equipment for the last 8 Olympic Games. And, you know, when you look at that, that's the best case study in human performance, because you have male athletes, female athletes, power athletes, endurance athletes. Golf is one of those sports. So we use that as an opportunity to go out and study the best practices, make sure that we can meet the demands of the world's greatest athletes, but then also peel that back a little bit, work with people like Trevor and the JJs of the world throughout all of sports, and then not only make sure that we have the right selection and equipment and digital ability to capture that, but then we've done things like we just came out with the Technogym Golf Performance Program, which is an education course based on the most applicable science to elicit amazing results in golf performance for golfers of all abilities, whether they're recreational golfers, aspiring, you know, young golfers that Trevor's working with to get them ready, hopefully for college or maybe the tour, or at the highest level with elite PGA, LPGA players. And then we bring in amazing content providers that are working with those type of individuals every day, so it's that relevant.
I say, listen, there's so much more that we'll dive into about how it applies down to the amateurs. But whilst we're still on topic of tour players, so Tim, I know we were talking the other day about being on tour, and obviously Theragun is a relatively new product within the golf world. How have you seen tour players using it? What are they using it for, and how does it relate to their performance on the course?
Yeah, and I think, well, to add to JJ and to add to Marty, I think what's super exciting right now is that we've got past the fact that we're asking the question, should golfers train? And now we're asking the question, how should they train? And how do we optimize what they're doing? And I think ultimately what we see is when the best players in the world train, there's a focus on their movement quality, as JJ discussed. But ultimately on that foundation, it's how do we add strength and power, and kind of using obviously equipment, the Technogym equipment, but ultimately using kind of training, building a training program and consistently executing it to add that strength and power. But on top of that, in terms of the demands they put on their body from a training standpoint, and demands they put on themselves from a practice standpoint, and then obviously hopefully playing 4 rounds and not 2 rounds every week, it takes a toll on the body. So from a sports science standpoint, the question then becomes, well, how do we optimize recovery? If we're figured out that we want to train for strength, we want to train for power, the golfers then have to figure out, well, what can I do to ensure that I'm recovered and I'm ready to step on the first tee on the next day? And ultimately, you've got foundations of nutrition, hydration, sleep, and kind of ensuring that things. But then from a kind of a technology standpoint, you have kind of these devices such as Theragun's percussive therapy devices, where you can actually increase or enhance the body's natural kind of recovery processes, increasing blood flow, kind of decreasing soreness, and so on. So when it comes to what's happening on tour, I think what's really exciting is that there's this commitment to training. There's a commitment to training the right way, and then there's also this commitment on the back end to ensure that their body can handle those stresses, and utilizing Theragun percussive therapy is one of the best ways to do that. And I think it would be a miss for us to not talk about Bryson real quickly in terms of, and when we talk about how tour players are training, I think one of the really interesting things of what's come out in the media is the fact that they tied that he got bigger to hitting the golf ball further, and the kind of story where he got big and he hit the golf ball further. And I think what's important to mention is that he got big to allow himself to get stronger. And that strength is what allows him to hit the golf ball further. And not only did he just aim to get big and strong, he did it working with a professional who was ensuring that he was doing it in the right way and maintaining his movement throughout that process. So, and again, then being able to commit to recovery as well as part of that. So I think it's super exciting to see what the pros are doing, but what we can take from it and start to apply to those amateurs as well.
Well, I think there's elements, right? There's different reasons that someone like Bryson can hit that ball further, and the performance, the biomechanics of his body is perhaps reproducing what needs to be done. But if he didn't have the technique down, he didn't have the right equipment, different mindset, obviously these things are combined. But I think you're right. There is a perception perhaps that just bigger is better for golf now, and that's probably the misnomer that Trevor here is going to dispel. So Trevor, just kind of explain to us maybe the forces perhaps that someone like Bryson is able to generate, and then how has that changed over the years? Obviously this game used to be a feel game, didn't it? It was all about touch, and now it's about power. So students coming to see you, Trevor, are they all telling you they want to get bigger and stronger? Are we seeing that now when you work with a new client?
Oh yes, they are. But I think what's happening is it's really exciting. We're starting to see this evolution of the way that the golfer understands how to do that. It started with, let's say, Tiger Woods and his ability to, I think, give himself a competitive edge by training. You know, I think everybody as athletes, we want that competitive edge. We want that little bit, as the game gets a little bit tougher, and you got a lot of great natural players coming in. What's that edge you want? What's that? So with that, you're going to have a captive audience of students coming in wanting to learn how to do it the right way. And so for me, it's a pleasure to introduce biomechanics and introduce different recovery exercises. More visual training. So I'm able to get an athlete that retains a lot of the information it's been around for a while, right? But since the game has turned into a power game, they really want to understand how to be able to do that. And so for me, I think the number one responsibility that I have is to make sure that it starts with your coach and the techniques that you're learning, because we find that a lot of junior golfers will create this hybrid way of creating speed, and their bodies are underdeveloped, right? Lower core, there's no lower core development, no lower body development, and ultimately they end up getting hurt. So, I applaud guys like Bryson who's doing it the right way, but also being very transparent. I think that's a really good responsibility that he has, because people are looking at him, young people are looking at him. So it gives me the opportunity to talk about proper nutrition, proper protein intake. When do you take it? When should you, and so I get the opportunity to tell the kids, if you want to get bigger and stronger, go to bed on time, right? So you can properly recover, right, to train hard the next day, right? Flexibility, all those little intangibles I think that we grew up with in performance and that are in other sports. I think golf has the platform now to really take advantage of that stuff, and that's why I'm really excited about what Technogym is doing, what Thoroughbody's doing, and also JJ's and David's been the pioneer, right, to give us this platform to do what we do. So no, the kids are excited. They're like, I think within the last 4 years, they're actually showing up to the gym 20 minutes earlier, already prepared themselves for what I'm getting ready to take them through, right? And so it's a very exciting time.
And hey, Trevor, I think you touched on something that's quite interesting that that perhaps JJ you can maybe elaborate on. But there's certainly a newfound desire perhaps for golfers to say, okay, look, I get it. Tour players are great athletes now, and there are some extreme examples maybe with what Bryson's doing, but every one of those tour players works out and understands their body better. JJ, in your research, have you found that there is a optimal way to swing the club? Is there a signature that a golfer has, and how can the average golfer perhaps understand that better?
Yeah, just before that, I just would like to come back to Bryson, and I think people forget, that when Tiger comes, in 2000, he was very changing himself quite a lot. He gained a lot of power, a lot of weight, and so on. I remember having showing him, seeing him at the World Championship, Amateur Championship in Paris. He was very thin. He was almost not like you, Ben, but very thin guys. And a few months after, he was a crazy athlete. So I think what's happened, with Bryson, and it will happen now with a lot of tour players. It's like what we see in rugby. When you look at the rugby players in the year 90, and when you look at rugby right now, it's a total different world, and the guys are working like in golf, in trying to explore, all the fields that helps, to develop the power. So I think, and sorry, can you say again your question?
It kind of elaborates on it. Obviously, there's Bryson. The way Bryson swings a golf club, he's developed, right? He has his own philosophies on how to swing a club. Is there a signature, even what Bryson's doing? Is that the same as what you would recommend in terms of a biomechanical movement that every golfer should be doing, or are there different signatures that people have?
Yeah. So you pronounce the real name signature has been, what we have been looking for since the first study we done, on the Open Tour in the year 1998, 99. We were we tried to understand why players prefer, to strategically speaking, to play with a push draw or playing with a pull fade. And we arrived to a point that we understand that there is two big similarities in golf. You have the puller and you have the pusher. It's a big difference in the way they are working with their body. The pusher, they have at the downswing they have to produce a big amounts of explosiveness in their body, but they need to resist to be able to catapult the club head with the different segment will stop. Where the puller it's very 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 athletic, if I can say, and they need they don't have any kind of stop. They increase the speed of the hips tremendously, and they need to have somewhere even more power, more protection than the push drawer. So the good point is that if we don't talk about pro, but every kind of player, I will say it's more easy to maintain and to develop a good balance in your body when you make a push draw rather than when you make a pull fade. So it's very important at the start to understand what kind of trajectory you like to play with, and depending on that, you will have some different direction. But definitively, what everybody needs to to understand how his body is able to absorb the force will be creating on the through the body. When Bryson DeChambeau want to gain weight, it's quite good because at the end what you have what we call the core compression force, which is going to be applied at impact, which are linked with the core with the compressor of the ball you can create. For sure, if you have 40 kilos more, you will have more compression, but you need to have this core compression force. We're going to work with the force you can develop and the energy you can develop in the body. So for sure, it's not only to be fat that will make you the ball going further, but if you develop muscle at the same time, you need to develop elasticity, you need to develop balance. So I don't know personally Bryson. I only know him when he was using the shaft I co-designed with the TPT, because it was very interesting by the proprioception you can get with the shaft we were designing. But something is clear with Bryson. He tried to go in all the field he can go to put his body the best he can. And for that, if you have power, if you develop power, you need to develop strengths for sure, but you need to develop elasticity. And I'm sure these guys certainly have a very strong program of a range of motion enhancements. Certainly he has some osteopathy for us in Europe, maybe some physio in US with working on his fascia to be able to make all that muscle and the aponeurosis around the body the more flexible possible, to develop power. Because at the end, what you need to have, you need to create strength, and you need to release the strength. So that's a very strong combination. And I think, if you know the signature, if you're able to have, product like Technogym, you were mentioning PGA Tour, but on the Open Tour, we have been for more than 15 years, we have, the product of Technogym, inside the physio unit, and we were able, to see when the guys was working, with a different system. We have like the one Trevor Inez is back, we were able, to see some big amounts of force when we are testing that on the range on the first plate. So for sure, the combination of understanding where is your body, where it can go, will help, to create power.
And then Tim, let me come to you with this. Is this something that's applicable to every golfer, whether they are an 80-year-old or an 8-year-old playing at different levels? Do you think this is applicable to every type of golfer?
So I think there's some key principles to kind of pull out from what tour players are doing, and how it can be applied to amateurs at every age and every level, as you describe. And I think in their pursuit of obviously hitting the golf ball further, and I think the first principle, I think the work done by Professor Ben Langdown, Dr. Jack Wells, and others in Europe has shown quite clearly that a warm-up can help you hit the golf ball further, and the importance of performing a physical warm-up before you get to your golf warm-up. And I think so that would be the first principle to pull out in terms of, and I think every single golfer at any age, as you just described, the 80-year-old down to the 10-year-old junior, and kind of whether they're looking for a future in golf and they're a low handicap golfer, or they play off 20 and they just want to get out there. I think in hitting the golf ball further, the first principle is that every golfer should warm up. The second principle to take from that is Alex Aylard, one of the brightest minds in kind of golf science, is a PhD student currently. He just published a systematic review that quantified some of the physical attributes of golfers related to club head speed. And so if we kind of, to simplify in the study results, it's simply one of the highest correlated physical attribute is really associated with muscle power and muscle strength with club head speed. So again, if you're 80 years old, if you're 20 years old, if you're 10 years old, an increase in strength, however you pursue that, from what you are currently, will help you hit the golf ball further. So for an 80-year-old, oftentimes we work from a physical standpoint, from a training standpoint, just simple exercises to help improve their strength, to help them prevent falls when you're that age. But I think that can also that strength can also translate to how they hit the golf ball and how far they hit it. And then again, for the amateur golfer in their 20s to the 40s to the 50s, if they can warm up consistently before they golf, but also they pursue getting stronger, I think it's absolutely applicable to take those principles from what's happening on tour and amateurs to kind of see improvements in that. And I think the last point to finish on is that when obviously JJ's knowledge and talks of terming in terms of the technical side of the golf swing, I think it's so important to understand that the amateurs, if they really want to do this the best possible, it's ideally working with a fitness professional who works hand in hand with that golf professional. And really, when we think about the technical pursuit of hitting the golf ball further and the physical pursuit, that they're really done in a way that they complement one another and they ultimately amplify one another. I think if you end up in a situation sometimes with a fitness professional who doesn't understand golf, doesn't understand the golf swing, a golf professional who doesn't understand kind of the fitness side, you can see he's working against one another. But I think ultimately I guess that would be the third principle to take from the way that tour players do it for amateurs. If you're looking to pursue this in a very serious manner, it's find a fitness professional who understands golf and will work with your golf professional and help marry that technical and physical together, and you'll see the best results. And
Marty, where does this start and finish? Is there a system that you can say, look, again, feel free to kind of give specific examples if you kind of see this in your daily work, but what kind of training, if you like, would you recommend to an amateur golfer? Let's take a mid-high handicapper, maybe only plays a dozen times a year at the most and has a busy job. What can they practically be doing to start tapping into their body?
Sure, that's a great question. And coming before I joined Technogym, I was director of education, I'm sorry, director of fitness in the private country club market. So I worked with, for 18 years outside of my time in professional baseball with countless aspiring golfers of all levels, of course, not at the professional level, but your young amateurs that want to go into college, or just your, what I would call the country club athlete that, just now wants to enjoy the game of golf, at any age, as they've, joined these clubs. So when I moved over to Technogym, what I realized was that there's thousands of fitness professionals out there that don't have access to the likes of Trevor and JJ and everybody else that gets to work with the PGA Tour players. So what I looked at is Technogym is that bridge where we could take, what we do each and every day with the world's greatest athletes and all of their highest level performance coaches, and there's a lot of people that work under that umbrella, and then make a systematic educational process to simplify the complexity of golf performance. So that's where the Technogym Golf Performance Program came from, something that is utilized each and every day on tour. And then, when you get your physical therapists and athletic trainers, they might tweak it to their specific desired outcomes, but by and large, the science is the science. So really, with any of our golfers that aren't with people like Trevor, et cetera, is let's get you moving well first. Let's just improve human movement, and that's what we call our back into action program. Then we transition into some golf-related strength endurance. As JJ said, we have to get people stronger. That's what we called our Tee It Up program. And then the final part was our Let It Rip phase, where we teach them now how to use that proper human movement and that strength endurance to elicit a better power result. Because a lot of people come into fitness and they want to hit the golf ball farther. So their first thing they focus on is, let me grab a medicine ball, let me grab a band and start moving it quickly. Well, you got to earn the right to get there. We all know that in our worlds because we've studied this human performance to the highest level. And then we put in pre and post round, because as JJ said and Tim said, and we got to get people warmed up. We got to teach them how to take care of their body after they golf. And then we even put some cardiovascular components in, because I think the world's greatest golfers, their cardiovascular ability is probably not truly noticed by the fans of the game of golf. So that's what we did with some of the greatest strength coaches and athletic trainers in the industry that are working with these golfers. And the key component to it is move well, earn the right to go to those other levels of performance. But to kind of finalize this is, we have all worked with the best and the best, the most elite athletes. And then I've also worked, and I'm sure Trevor and everybody else has worked with, just your average golfer that, is retiring and wants to play more golf, and they want to do it injury-free. We don't train them any differently. And what I mean by that is everybody's an athlete. Everybody has the same bones, same muscles, same movement patterns. And they all have the same physiological characteristics they can train in. The only difference is their abilities within those capacities. So when we break that down, that we're going to train you like the world's greatest golfers. Now, your capacity for power may never come close to Bryson's or Tiger's in his peak, but that doesn't mean we neglect it. Your stamina, your agility, and all of those factors, we give them the same programs, but we just give it to them the level they're at as professionals, and we know how to move them along their spectrum. And again, it's quite all right if they don't ever get to the same ability in those capacities as the world's greatest golfers, but the program and the concepts shouldn't change.
And then so it's about becoming your own best athlete relative
Absolutely.
to your own desires, right? Yeah. Trevor, you do this day in, day out, and I
Right.
watch you with the different players. How do you bridge that gap between a player that's working with a golf coach that is then adding a fitness and performance component to it? What's the typical process you go through?
I think the number one thing is just holistically communication about what their goals are and what they're working on with their coach. Okay, and then I think you have to be able to get them to understand what that limitation is or how they think about movement. So there's testing set up obviously to identify involuntary movement. Okay, and that's movement. They're moving without them even realizing that they're doing it, and that usually comes from part of the body that's weak. And yeah, of course, we could identify that with data and testing and everything else. But that's one thing for us to have the information and decipher it. It's a completely other thing to have so they understand it. Okay, that's the number one goal. They have to understand their limitations. So that's the heavy lifting for us as coaches. And obviously, when they're in here, in terms of their mental focus, is to compete with the gym. They want to come in, they want to know that they had a good workout, and they feel pumped and everything else. And they're very competitive in that, from that perspective. So we're very humble, and we often like to say less is more. There's maybe 10 things you have to work on that's dysfunctional that we've identified via data, but let's work on that. Let's try to identify that one mechanism. Okay, is it the hips? Is it the hip flexor? Is it the lower core? What's that one domino that can knock down maybe 6 other dominoes, right? And get them to understand that and work very intently on that, so they see progress, they see more balance with what they're doing. And they're literally want to try those exercises that sometimes they, with proprioception, they'll lose balance, but they know they'll get better from it. We don't want to give them exercises that they're pretty strong in already. Okay. So I think if they're a part of the process, they understand what their goals are on the range, and how that applies in the gym, and then ultimately the decisions that they make on the golf course from what they're doing. And so I think that's the number one thing that we work on with our students is there's so many, right now we have so many resources to be able to do that. And, I'm lucky enough, and obviously I have our students for 9 months, but just for the average golfer, I would say create a plan, create a periodization of what you want to work on. And obviously what Marty says is very important in terms of understanding functionally what you can do. You want to be a master of your own body movement first before you touch weights. You want to understand how your body isolates itself, obviously, and understand how that correlates on the golf course, right? So I often tell our athletes that, core is really about short game, right? Anything 60 yards in, you really want to make sure your body has the ability to decelerate, to give yourself some control, right, with our junior golfers. And what are some of those limitations that may occur for that mechanism is, they're all growing anyway, right? They have these growth gates that they're growing, so their body's going to tighten up. There's some involuntary stuff that happens to the body that I think they have to be aware of, just from a science standpoint, to give themselves a little bit more patience, and to when they leave my session of doing glute bridges or kind of your fundamental exercises to build strength, they're not going back to their gym and doing heavy squat because they feel like that's the solution, right? So I think the little things that have to be identified, practiced, and creating that level of trust, so that they when I say go home and recover, that they actually do that, right? And eating well and nutrition. So it's been really good, but that's accredited to all the information that we're getting now from golf.
There's obviously two sides to this. There's golfers out there that want to hit it further, right? But that comes with maybe the counter side of that is that there's a risk if people are out there swinging like hell or playing regularly, that there's a risk that they're going to get injured. And I think that's maybe the other side of the biomechanics conversation that I know I've had dozens of questions actually since you've all been talking. And the common theme that people are asking is, how do I stop myself getting injured? How do I get a better range of motion, and how can I play more often? JJ, do you want to take that one? What's your recommendation? Should to ensure that a golfer plays injury-free, what are the main things they need to be considering?
I think the main thing, and is going is following what Trevor was saying, is first of all, you need to know yourself. You need to understand how your body, is balanced. What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths you have in your body? At what speed are you able to maintain, a certain motion? Does the speed of action will have an interaction on your body? And knowing that, I would say for everybody who want to increase injury-free, the power in his swing, first of all, you need to be in balance. That's why, you talk about, and that's the key of what we are doing with our protocol. We have, when you have a system like a Terragon, which is able in less than 6 minutes to change the range of motion of a shoulder, of a kinematic muscle chain, will not be locked by a problem of the joints, but only be able to be stretched better. You can see instantaneously, the difference in your golf swing. So when you see that, you can isolate the problem I think you have on certain kinematic chain, you can plan having a good plan, you know, to develop the elasticity of certain kinematic chain. And when you have that, you can go and working, you know, with different products who have been working a lot with Technogym, and I love so many things, you know, we can do. You can see after how you can build, you know, the power once you have, you know, the elasticity and once you have the motion. So I will say, I will recommend to every people who want to increase injury-free, you know, the power, first of all, just to isolate, you know, the disbalance they have in their body. Understanding how this disbalance will have an impact in their golf swing, how this problem they have in the golf swing, the trajectory, in the compressor, in the club path direction, and so on, because we know that, for example, the center of gravity of the body is linked with the club path, you know, direction. So you can manage, you know, by the body many things, you know, of the golf swing, but you can also isolate by the golf swing many interrogation you may have in your body. So I would say be the more balanced possible before going further. When you get balance, you have a plane, because we are all different. We are not perfectly aligned. We all have a little some scoliotic attitude and so on. We don't have exactly the two legs exactly from the same size and so on. So everybody is in balance. But in this imbalance, we need to find the better balance you can. And when you get that, it will give you the signature of your golf swing, and it will give you, you know, the works you have to do, you know, for on the strengths and proprioception. Because what I love, you know, with Technogym system, you know, is all you can work in strengths and proprioception. Proprioception is very important for a golfer. You need to feel how he will move, because it's very quick. For 0.4 seconds of the downswing, you don't have. Even if you think at something, you can't realize it. So it will be the combination of what you will be able to create, you know, at the backswing. At the backswing, a lot of things will be done, because you will create, maintain, and store energy that you will release at the downswing. So when you are able, you know, to do that, and to have a guide on exercise you can do, you know, at the gym, like Trevor is doing, you know, and he has many tools, you know, to be able to do that. You train your body to, you know, on the concept of the biomechanics, because a golf swing has the same concept than a surfer, than a kicker in rugby. You need, you know, to have a good foot grounding. You need, you know, to have a good coiling, which is a result of a good dissociation with a good posture. So many things. There is some key principles that could be applied to everybody to reach a big level. But before, you need to be balanced. That will be my direction. And we know with Trevor and David also, you know, in his approach, and that's you have been seeing what we have been doing with Patrick Reed, you know, when before the US Open, you know, it was, you know, to be able to understand, you know, where you want to go, but also when you want to go in some direction, for sure, it will touch something in the posture, something in the release, in the strengths you will put during your swing. So and overall, and I know Trevor, you know, and I love those works he's doing, you know, with all the kids there, because, you know, they're kids, you know, at Leadbetter, you know, academies, they could do baseball, they can jump, they can run, they can do every sports. And what I love, you know, for a golfer is to be, you know, a good athletes. And that's what the next generation is going to be huge. And I'm so happy not to be too old, you know, to see, you know, what's going on, you know, right now, even if it's this crazy COVID, you know, he's killing us for a while, but he will not destroy us. And so I know a lot of guys, you know, are thinking even more and more how they can develop their body to be ready for the next year.
Tim, what's your take on, obviously, in terms of injury prevention? That's a big part of what Theragun has been developed for, in terms of that recovery and the activation before. Should people be building this into their daily routine? Is this something they use just prior to playing golf? What are your recommendations to all these questions coming in saying, how do I stop getting injured playing golf? Is there a solution?
No, absolutely, and I think wonderful questions from the attendees. In the pursuit of hitting the golf ball further, you ultimately end up swinging it faster, puts more stress on the body. And when we look at golf injuries, we know that most of them occur from an overuse. Kind of the golf swing is a repetitive motion, and where we put stress on certain areas of the body. And you look at the people who swing it the fastest, you see a lot of injuries lower back, you see a lot of injuries neck, wrist, elbow, etc. And that's one of the reasons we created the Theragun warm-up protocols. And when we think of the Theragun percussive therapy, it can reduce the tension, kind of in a muscle, improve the range of motion, and ultimately kind of improve movement. And the way we designed our golf protocols is not only around the way that we swing a golf club, but also where we see these injuries. So you'll see it in the handout that's kind of attached for the attendees. But ultimately, by targeting kind of the muscles in the lower body to improve movement at the hips prior to golf, you can actually take stress. If the hips move better, you'll take some stress off the lower back. And same if you kind of hit different areas of the upper body, you can kind of take some of the stress and improve rotation at the upper spine and what we describe as your thoracic spine, as well as kind of improving the motion of the shoulders and taking stress off the elbows and the wrists. So absolutely, I think the nature of golf lends itself to if people don't take care of their bodies, ultimately kind of resulting in these types of injuries. But with Theragun percussive therapy, the goal is to give access to every golfer what those tour players have, where they have someone working on their body, they have someone preparing it so that they can move well and reduce the amount of stress they experience, and then ultimately after the round, treat those areas that have been stressed. Again, treat the prime movers, the areas of the body that you are using in the golf swing as a more of a maintenance thing. So this really, obviously, we talked a lot about kind of a lot of different things in warm up and recovery, but ultimately it can become kind of a daily routine of using your Theragun to basically take care of your body in the same way that professional golfers are, and giving access to everybody.
Then, Marty, if there's obviously going to be coaches listening to this, golf coaches and instructors. What's your advice if they're working with a player on technique, perhaps, and they are seeing deficiencies? There is a solution, right? But just explain to us kind of how those parts go together.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to realize, as an athletic trainer, I went to school and studied athletic injuries for 4 years. So it's not a matter of, will an athlete potentially get injured? It's a matter of if, because we don't play sports because they're good for us biomechanically. There's good biomechanics to elicit a sporting event, right? But that doesn't mean it's sound for us. Now, however, I'm not saying that to scare anybody off. What I'm saying that is that if, we talk to people in, whether it's a tour player or a recreational player, say, listen, you're picking up a sport, we're going to get you in the best shape possible for sport, but because of you're playing a sport, you have to now treat yourself like a professional athlete and do all the things that you never see them do, right? Everyone sees these golfers make these amazing shots. They don't realize the amount of time that we've all talked about that they're with the professionals, making sure their body's in balance, making sure that they have their warm up and make sure they have their recovery. So I carry that right over to any of my recreational golfers, saying, if you want to, like everybody's an athlete, if you want to play the sport, I'm going to treat you like an athlete at the highest level. I'm going to give you your warm up. I'm going to give you your proper golf training program that we base off assessments. And then I'm going to give you your recovery techniques. And these are the same things that the world's greatest golfers are doing. You may not have to spend as much time and do it as frequently, but at least you're going to have to put that into your complete golf solution so you can enjoy the game better. So when we talk to the coaches and the players, I think regardless of who we talk to, we're going to try to give them the best complete solution that we see on the PGA Tour every day, and just maybe modify it down to their abilities, as I said, because they're the same golf athlete that a Bryson DeChambeau is. It's just, obviously he's going to put more torque on his body every time he swings the club. He's going to take thousands of swings a week. He's going to have all these other issues. A recreational golfer doesn't have that, but they have the factor that they're not maybe in the physical shape that someone like Bryson is. So when we can really level it out and get them to think of themselves as being the best athlete that they can be, and if they're committed to enjoying the game of golf, well, then you have to find somebody like a Trevor or somebody else that can give you at least a program to start with, or go through and find out, as JJ said, what are your abilities and what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and now you put that into your practice time in a sense, and now you can enjoy the game of golf for years. And we always say we want people to enjoy the game of golf injury free, and then we want to see them improve their performance. So I just think too many recreational golfers go out and think, I'm going to pick up a game of golf, and they start swinging the club, and they don't realize all the other factors that these amazing golfers are doing so they can go swing the club.
It's quite very much a holistic approach, which
Absolutely.
I know is true to our beliefs.
The rest, recovery, nutrition, all of that, of course.
Trevor, just touching on this, and then we'll kind of move on to the next bit. But in terms of injury prevention, when you're working with players, are you able to screen physical limitations that are attributing to poor technique, which then in turn creates injuries? Is that the process you look at?
Absolutely. And that's what leads to injury. Their interpretation of movement, as limited as it may be to them, or as functional as it may be to them, there are limitations and imbalances in the way they interpret movement. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why? Well, if you watch them, right, on hitting balls on the range, it still goes straight. It still goes far, right? But they're doing it in this hybrid way of hitting the ball straight. Okay, so it's a very delicate level of communication to now say, hey, I know you're hitting it straight, you're hitting it far, but 4 months down the road, you may have a tight back from doing it that way. Can I help you prevent injury? Okay. So I think that's the number one thing. And once you have the athletes inside and they understand that, you don't move to the next exercise or the next phase until that's corrected, in my opinion. And so they can go to the next thing. So that's it's more of a periodization approach to it. But let's fix that issue first, and then we'll move to the next thing, the next dynamic performance exercise or training drill.
I'll steal this from Tim because he said it the other day that the body is the most important piece of equipment we have for the golf swing, right? You can switch out the clubs and everything else, but it's amazing probably how people haven't really maybe taken that fully on board, that get that bit right and the rest follows. That's right, Tim. I'm giving you credit because you did tell me that.
I think also sorry, Ben, something very important, when we talk about power enhancement and program and planification and so on, you need to understand that our body is an organic system. It's not a robot. And, like an organic system is moving every day. Every day we are different. Even between the morning and the afternoon is different. So there is all the parameter, the parameter will have an impact on performance. We'll take in consideration that we are an organic system. And that's and essentially, what we have been doing, with Trevor, here in Champions Gate, with the academy, is really to consider that when we talk about biomechanics, we don't talk about fundamental biomechanics. We talk about applied biomechanics. How you can apply the concept of biomechanics to everybody, taking in consideration, like a team was saying, that you have some people who never make any kind of athletic motion. So you need to have a progression. And even when you arrive at the top level, that you're going to be, you will get old, or you will get under fatigue, or you will get excited, and that will change the way you are able, to swing and to maintain your golf swing. So something also is very important, and I heard this word, with all of this of my fellow, is that we need to be humble. We need to be humble, and you need to reach, the performance. But like in every sports, it's not. We are not a machine. We are an organ. That's why, when we talk about, elasticity, when we talk about strength, when we talk about proprioception, biomechanics, and coaching, the key is to be able, to communicate with all the people who have an impact on the performance of the players, and to be able, to play, with this body, which is a great tools, but will never be a robot. That was my
it's fascinating. I wish we had longer, because I think there's so many more areas that we could discuss. We are getting kind of close towards the time that they've given us to discuss this. I did want to just quickly go around and maybe ask what your your vision for the biomechanics and fitness and performance in golf will look like. So obviously it's come an enormous way from when JJ was first involved, maybe in the 90s, to where it is today. Perhaps JJ, maybe you can start, but where do you see us as a discipline in 5 years' time, in terms of where we've got to and where the industry will get to?
Yeah, I think in the very quickly, we will be able. When you remember, I was talking about 98. 98, you don't have an iPad talking like we're talking like this, to be able to make some biomechanics. So really my thoughts, and I'm working on that, with a few partners actually, is really, to be able, to understand even more quickly what the body is able to do. We have some system, which are able, to read the body in terms of bioenergetic, biomechanics, and so on. And really, the future will be able to have all the different players able to be connected with their coach, whatever it's not only the technical coach, but also the strength and conditioning coach and biomechanist and so on, to be able, to understand what are the problems, without being full time, beside you. So mean that you will be able to travel everywhere to have a check instantaneously. This check can be linked, to through the net, and with some algorithm can be treated instantaneously. And depending of if you have a Terragon or if you have a Technogym system beside, or if you have a coach, who has been trained to certain direction, he will be able, to go to see these guys. This guy will know, the profile. He will know, where he is, what is the problematic, and he can give the solution. That's going to be the future. The future will come by being very effective in understanding how the body is working so far today, and what's going to be the solution that we'll have instantaneously. It will come very quickly. Actually, with IE, we have been some great results already to be able, to understand a trace in the first plate. It can be linked, with some lack of positioning posture, which include, some problem in the glutes or in the abs and so on. So that's and we are with my university. We work with reverse dynamic, and we know right now, but it's not only a question of computer, but we know now how to calculate instantaneously energy in the body by knowing, the weight of the body, the displacement, and so on. But after, it's a question of calculation, which are not available yet. But it will come very quickly to be able, to track your body, to understand your body, and to protect him and to develop him on a good direction. Thanks to that. And after, I think, the PGA Tour and European Tour, and the Ryan and Sand and so on, they certainly need to make the golf maybe a little bit more difficult and complicated. And we know, that there is some solution for that, because for sure, that it's like in rugby and so on. The rules are changing because the guys get stronger, quicker, power, and so you need to change the rules. So certainly we will have to adapt to new rules, and with all the team which is here, and to be able to find some new solution.
Well, I guess the four of you guys developing these great athletes that now hit the ball 400 yards, you're actually killing this sport indirectly, because there won't be any golf courses left for them to play on. Trevor, maybe you could follow on from JJ. Where do you see us in 5 years' time? Are we going to have, everybody's going to have a swing coach and a fitness trainer because they just understand that these things are inseparable? What's your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think we're kind of there now. Like what we're doing right now is the future. We're communicating holistically to enhance performance, and I think the number one thing that we're doing now is reinforcing the way that we use equipment and the way that we recover. Okay, so we can get more work done in 1 day, 1 week than we did in a month or two. I think everybody understand that, like what JJ is saying, that the game is evolving, it's getting more competitive. And, it's going to draw a different athlete, a different younger athlete who may have chose baseball for that intangible of competitiveness, and they're going to choose golf. because of that level of competitiveness and athleticism. And it's exciting to be a part of that. So, it's the holistic process. Myself as a trainer, getting information from JJ in all of his background and deciphering that information and giving my athletes the ability to engage what they're doing. I don't want to give out too much of his information, but we have a noodle, right? They step on and they're instantly understanding where their body is in balance. So I get a different level of mental awareness. And then having that information and using Technogym's equipment, while I have the same mentality of the feeling of what they need to do, now applying some of the brilliant stuff that Technogym is doing with all their equipment to what they need to utilize it on for the golf swing. And then after the session, recovery, I think is the most important thing now with Therabody and what they're doing with recovery. So now the next day, they can train just as hard. And I think that's where the golf is evolving, and that's kind of where we're seeing it from a holistic process, and everybody working together and sharing information with one another. I think is what I'm really proud of now, and that's what golf is doing.
What's your take on that, Marty?
Yeah, I agree with JJ and Trevor completely that, we're there and we're going to keep fine tuning it. That, Technogym, it's in the name, technology. So that's not going to go anywhere. That's been in our DNA, and we like to be the thought leader in that. So really it comes down to, can we take complex information, simplify it, applied, from science, evidence-based approach, get the world's greatest people together like JJ and Trevor and Tim and all these people that we get to work with. And then can we give them the equipment they need with the data? And then can we reproduce that and make it where anybody at any time has it instantly, that type of information? So regardless whether it's a PGA Tour player or somebody that, wants to pick up the game at age 50, do they have the right information to give themselves the best chance of enjoying the sport and becoming the best version that they can? And obviously that includes not facing the injuries that a lot of athletes would face whenever they pick up a sport, regardless of their age. And that's what we do each and every day. And, there'll be new technology and new applications of things, but tying this all together in that full, complete, holistic approach like the world's greatest athletes are doing, and then bringing it to the general population each and every day.
And I presume that there's a future, right, where the data that's now being collected, I think you alluded to this earlier, we're going to be able to start telling golfers the equipment is smart enough now that they're working on to prescribe, okay, we understand the exertion that you put in your last round of golf, or the way you're trying to develop your body. The equipment's going to start giving us more and more information simpler so that people can start applying it. I presume that's kind of the goal, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key things is just, one of the pieces we have on the trailer is our skill run. So it's a motorized, non-motorized treadmill. It'll tell you what's going on between your right and left leg. So, imagine if you had a 15% deviation on power or stride length or whatever for 6, 7, 8 months. It's going to show up eventually, but the machine can tell you immediately. And now people like JJ can look at the biomechanics and say, hey, okay, yeah, here's what I'm seeing. And that's why we're seeing this 15% deviation. Let's get ahead of it before we wait. Back in the days when I was an athletic trainer, we had more of a reactive, process where it's like, okay, your knee hurts. Now let's take a look at you. Mm-hmm. So that whole mindset has changed on, let's get ahead of it through the assessments. While we're exercising, we should be pulling the data. And if there's a performance indicator that's off, let's intervene now and figure out what that is. So that way we, can create a solution before there's the problem.
Yeah. And then just finally, Tim, in 5 years' time, every single golfer has a Theragun as their 15th club. Is that the vision?
No, absolutely. And I think, to steal back the quote from earlier, I think it's so normal for amateur golfers to invest a lot of time and a lot of finances into upgrading their equipment. So new driver every year, set of irons. That's very, very normal. And I think what isn't normal is putting an investment into their body, into that one piece of equipment that they ultimately can't change. And I think if we think of the industry over the next 5 years, I think we'll just normalize that the amateur golfers are investing in their body in the same way that professional golfers are. And to your point, I think one of the simplest ways to kind of to start doing that, and kind of one of the best entry points to that, is a Theragun, is utilizing a Theragun percussive therapy device to start helping prepare for golf, taking care of your body and from a recovery standpoint. But I think, yeah, that's the way the industry is going, is that it'll become very normal for golfers to invest in their body and ensure that that's one of the key pieces of the way that they play golf.
Listen, guys, thank you so much. I just wanted to quickly maybe wrap up with a single question, if you like, or a single point from you, just so that there's something that everybody listening can take away. Maybe starting with you, JJ. Is there one takeaway that our listeners and our viewers can start doing tomorrow that's going to set them on the right path to having a better golf body?
To have a better body for golf, maybe the first thing will be to be able to understand, how they are balancing. To understand how they are balancing, there is something very easy to understand. It's if you're standing up, you close your eyes, and when you have your eyes closed, you just put your toe up. If you feel that you are moving backwards, means that your body, is set too much in the front, even if we don't have force plate and everything. So, and if the body is standing up, most of the time frontwards, means that all of your back muscles, they are under stress, and all your front muscle, they are weak. Quad, the abs and so on. So first of all, just try to feel that and to develop that, by working on some exercise. Maybe you could ask, the one who are interesting to go to Trevor can send some Trevor's exercise with the noodles. It's a very simple exercise with the noodles, which is really the start, for having a good posture. And after, second thing, so I will give two. If they have a tennis ball, just cut the tennis ball in two, and they put in their golf swing, they put one tennis ball in the front of their left toe and one in the back of their right foot, and they see, they try to push on this both side, and they just try to see the trajectory they are able to create. And after, they do the reverse. They put the tennis ball in the front of the right toe and in the back of the left heel, and they look at the trajectories they will create. And that will be very interesting to have their feedback. And that's going to be the first step, to understand what are your signature. If you are able, to create a nice trajectory with a good draw by having, the ball, in the front of the left toe and the back of the right, certainly your signature, if you go through all our process, in Champions Gate, you will certainly see that you are very good push signature. On the other side is going to be the pull. And depending on that, just try to join guys like Trevor to understand what's going to be the difference, they can build in their golf swing.
JJ, thank you. I hope people are taking notes. If not, we'll put these tips out maybe on social media afterwards. Trevor, maybe we can come to you next. What's the one piece of advice or one thing you want everybody listening to start doing tomorrow?
Well, there's some things out there that I think everybody can do based on their individual needs, right, and their aspirations in terms of level. But I think the number one thing is the process, right? The process of, it's look at yourself as an entrepreneur. What are some of the things that you have to do to be successful with what you're trying to do? And I think the number one thing is, hey, get a fitness instructor and a golf coach together. Your golf instructor, put those two together. Right. And, get some feedback going on what are some of the goals from a golf perspective. And then maybe the fitness instructor can learn, what exercises to do and not to do based on what are some of those goals are. Because I think the number one thing is to develop confidence for the process, right? Especially in the beginning, to get some good feedback going, and then it's for somebody just playing this game, it's going to encourage them to go a little bit deeper into their training process. And I think one thing right away for everybody, if you're a recreational golfer, is we sit down quite a bit, right? We sit down a lot. So, looking at exercises for your hip flexor, for your hamstrings. The glute is very important in the golf swing as it controls the pelvis and keeps it neutral. But to get to the glute, you want to make sure your hamstrings are healthy, right? And so I would address there's some, obviously with Therabody, you know, can definitely corner that market when it comes to the hamstrings and activating the hamstrings to get the glute activated. And then also there's some equipment with Technogym that's also going to help them do that to start. So just knowing what you need to have, I think, to start the process. Golf is pretty complex from a body standpoint, but it's very easy if you have the right tools, I think, to learn, and it's fun. The process is fun. So that's about it. Enjoy.
Good. We'll take that. Get your golf coach and your trainer together. I like that. It's a good piece of advice. Tim, what about you? Is there one thing that you want people to take away?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're someone who works with golfers, golf professional, fitness professional, if you're a golfer yourself, the one thing is warm up, perform a physical warm up before you perform your golf warm up. There is absolutely no excuse to not do that. We know that it helps improve performance. We know that it can reduce injury and ultimately help you enjoy the game more. So that one thing, if you can do it, is make sure you're performing a physical warm up before your golf warm up. And really, there is not a simpler way to start doing that than using a Theragun. So, but one thing, make sure you're warming up.
There you go. Last word from you, Marty.
Awesome, thank you. Well, to kind of echo what Trevor was saying is, you know, I want people to focus on preparing, not playing. Especially if you're new to this, if you're starting out and you really want to get in the game of golf, you're looking at the end result of, I want to be on a course, I want to join a club, I want to play. That's the final stage in a sense. So create your plan on becoming an athlete, whatever level that is to you, and focus on preparing, having that system in place so you can eventually play more. And you know, the analogy I always use with my kids, we all did martial arts, they wanted to go and spar right away. I'm like, that's the end. You got to learn how to lace up your gloves first. You got to learn so many different things before you ever try to put it together in that final outcome. Those athletes make it look easy because they've been doing it, all those little steps, for years. So, you know, that's the same thing in golf. Yes, anyone can go out to a golf course, pay their greens fees and hit it around. But if you really want to get the best out of it, create a plan, which obviously everybody here just gave pieces of great information. There's so much to it, but let's focus on preparing to play, not just playing.
Fantastic. Marty, thank you so much. Tim, JJ, Trevor, I'll leave you with this. We had a question come in from Bill. He says, I'm an 84-year-old bogey golfer. I do stretches every day and bike for 45 minutes. Does this apply to me? And so I hope, Bill, just for you, this last hour and 20 minutes or so, it was specifically for you. So I hope you're able to take on some of the advice that we've been able to give. And fantastic that you're out exercising and playing golf. And let's hope you get those 10 yards extra that the guys have been proposing, and you do so injury-free. So thank you all very much for joining the session. Make sure you subscribe and sign up for the other sessions that we have going on this week. There's a great host and some great sessions still to come. Check out Golfzon Leadbetter University. There are courses, information on biomechanics that JJ's written. There's some fantastic information if you're looking to learn more about this subject. So check out Therabody, Technogym, Golfzon Leadbetter, and obviously what JJ's doing. With that, on behalf of Marty, Trevor, JJ, and Tim, and myself, Ben Richards, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you at the next session.